Good morning, I'm Jake Sherman.
And I'm Max Cohen.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It is Monday, June 22nd, 2026. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, Trump is coming to the Capitol. We'll dig in. Number two, there is a bipartisan House deal on KOSA. And number three, primaries and a lot of Republican meddling. Max, it's a good thing that you're here this morning because you are our resident expert on the United Kingdom and all of its happenings. Max, if you don't know, and you don't know, because how would you know, spent time in England as a child. He is our British correspondent, and Keir Starmer is resigning. He just announced at 10 Downing Street, and it is it's a big blow. The 6 prime ministers in the last, how many years? 7 years in England. Max, what say you about Keir and his downfall?
You know, his own members of parliament wanted him out. He acknowledged that in his speech that he just delivered. And it's a reflection the Labour government is polling very poorly to reform, led by Nigel Farage, a close Trump ally. And just this kind of anti-incumbent sweep still seems to be, affecting a lot of governments.
Could Nigel actually could he be the prime minister? Is that possible?
I think it is very possible. Again, we don't know when the general election is. That's the weird thing about UK politics is you can call a snap election or it can be in a couple of years. So we don't know. But yeah, I think Nigel Farage and Reform seem to have taken over the Tories as the major opposition party right now to Labour.
You got to say about Keir Starmer, great head of hair, Max. This is somebody who is not follically challenged.
And a big soccer fan. A big Arsenal fan.
Okay, fine. Let's move on here. Donald Trump is coming to the Capitol on Wednesday, Max, and he is coming to talk to the Senate Republican Conference the steering committee. This is not John Thune that has invited Trump to the Capitol. This is Rick Scott who has invited him. Rick Scott controls the steering lunch, which meets on Wednesday. This will be a big moment. I think this is just all a showdown over the filibuster and over the SAVE Act and all of those dynamics that Trump seems incredibly exercised about and has seemed incredibly exercised about a lot over the last couple of weeks. But Trump is moving from just dumping on people on Truth Social, or at least that's what he has been doing, to moving to the Capitol where he's going to face these folks face to face. And what will be a big moment, because in the last couple of weeks, Trump and Senate Republicans have been drifting farther apart over Iran, over the SAVE Act, over the filibuster, just a whole host of things. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that Rick Scott, right, is the one who invited Trump. He's a thorn in the side of leadership, someone who, has ran against the leadership favorites and lost. But it shows that, Trump is trying, he's trying to make his case to the conference for things that, as you mentioned, don't have enough votes, changing the filibuster, Save America Act, et cetera. But I do remember, when James Braid came on Flat Day last week, he said some things to the effect of, we really haven't started whipping that filibuster effort in earnest. There are more supporters than you might expect. So maybe this is the first step in a public pressure campaign that's going to take it to the next level. But I'm still somewhat skeptical that Trump can win over some of those members of the conference who, lest we forget, he endorsed against and he successfully took out and who have no reason to go along with him. And that's Cassidy and Cornyn and people like Tillis too.
Yeah, and this also should be viewed, in my estimation, as a big, not affront, but as a slight from Rick Scott to John Thune, because Scott controls this lunch, and I think it's safe to say, I don't know this. I guess I'm just projecting here, but I think it's safe to say that John Thune at this moment in time would not have invited Donald Trump to speak to the Senate Republican Conference. I'm not sure it's going to be a very productive conversation. The SAVE Act isn't going anywhere. The filibuster's not going anywhere right now, but I mean, maybe Trump can unlodge it. I mean, Trump likes to blame John Thune for not getting the votes for these things, but Trump himself also can't get the votes. And when Trump needs to get the votes for something, he does try. I mean, we've seen that about 20 million times in the House of Representatives over the last 2 years, and before that during the first Trump administration. But he's not able to do that here. And I think that's important. It's important to note. And Mike Lee, who's the chief kind of antagonist on the SAVE Act, has said that the Senate should just keep going here, keep debating the bill until people fold and until it gets through. John Thune says that's not a viable option. So there's this big clash. And I'll tell you something, Max. There is no situation. There are very few people in the Senate who believe that this is what Senate Republicans should be talking about right now. I mean, we're 100-something days before the midterm election. I haven't found anybody who's suggested this is the correct and effective and good message for them as they near the election, and kind of an intra-party fight over the filibuster, over voting rights policy and all this stuff. And remember, the Save America Act also puts strict restrictions on mail-in balloting. A lot of Republicans just don't agree with that. So, it's going to be a big moment Wednesday. The House is also in. They have a lot less of an interesting week. Anyway, that's what's going on. You got anything else here for us, Max?
I mean, I think the last point you made about the political environment is a key one. I mean, Republicans are playing defense in places like Iowa, Alaska. These are deep red Trump states, and Trump's popularity is sinking in a lot of these places. So, yeah, I'm not sure Senate Republicans want to hear a message from the president who's, you could argue, is politically toxic in even states he won just under 2 years ago.
All right, Max, number 2 story of the morning. There's some news from Ben Brody. There is a bipartisan deal on KOSA. The House Energy and Commerce Committee will unveil this deal on Monday that provides guardrails for protecting kids online against harms, including a long-sought compromise on the Kids Online Safety Act. The deal stakes out a unified House position on KOSA as the White House and key senators try to use an alternate Senate version to unlock a federal regulatory framework for artificial intelligence. This is a deal between Brett Guthrie, the Republican from Kentucky, who is the chair of the committee, and Frank Pallone, the ranking Democrat from New Jersey. The bill could move as soon as next week on suspension. This is a big deal. This is something that both parties have been wrestling over for a good deal of time. And I think what is important to note here is that this is effectively trying to preempt, or not trying to preempt, but trying to establish a unified position in negotiations with the Senate, especially as the Senate is trying to move an AI framework, Max. The politics here it's pretty amazing that it's taken the House this long to come to a bipartisan agreement on kids' online safety. This is something that should have happened a while ago. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's notable. We have Frank Pallone signed on here. That should be a signal to rank and file Dems that they can be a part of this deal, which I find an interesting contrast to what happened with the Obernolte-Trahan AI deal. Obviously a little bit of a different topic, but where Dem leadership did not go along with that, right? So this to signify there's broader support within the caucus.
Yeah, and Mike Johnson moving it on suspension means that he thinks this is going to get, 300 votes, or at least 290 votes, because that's what you need to get under suspension. So this is expected to get bipartisan support. I imagine the most of the House Republican Conference, a huge deal of the House Democratic Caucus, are both going to support this as soon as next week. Number 3 story of the morning, Max. We're going to cover 2 topics this morning. Number 1, we're going to cover the week in primaries. We have a busy primary schedule. What do we got?
Yeah, I mean, New York City is the one that stands out to me. This is Mamdani versus Jeffries in a lot of key races. We have Adriano Espaillat and Dan Goldman, incumbent Democrats who Jeffries is strongly backing, facing Mamdani-backed left-wing primary challengers. So look out for maybe some incumbents to lose. We have the Nadler open seat in Manhattan. We have the Nydia Velázquez seat in Brooklyn. So listen, a lot of interesting primaries. Quickly, New York 17, that's Mike Lawler's seat. Democrats will choose their nominee. And then in Maryland, we have David Trone making a comeback against April McLean Delaney.
Trying to make a comeback at least.
Yeah, he's trying it. He's making a political comeback. Who knows if he'll be successful? Of course, he lost that Senate race and has not let that go easy. And we have the Hoyer open seat. If anyone is in the D.C. media market, you're seeing tons of ads. Hoyer wants Adrian Bravo. Wes Moore endorsed him. Also Brooks endorsed him, but also AIPAC, Super PAC. So, yeah, and then we have Utah, and then there are 2 House Republicans, Celeste Malloy and Blake Moore, who are facing right-wing primary challengers. So, busy day on Tuesday.
Also, of note, Ali Mutnick has a great item about primary meddling. We're seeing an unprecedented amount of primary meddling. Republican groups and Republican donors have seeded pop-up Super PACs with $4.4 million to meddle in Democratic primaries. This is from new FEC data. It's very interesting, right? This is Republican donors, Republican political organizations spending millions of dollars to try to choose the candidates in Democratic primaries using a complex web of PACs and basically not legally money laundering, but effectively money laundering to make, multi-million dollar organizations that are playing in these Democratic primaries. You should read the item. It's fascinating, because this is definitely a trend in this election. We've seen this before, but not to this level. Effectively, Republicans trying to choose the least good Democratic candidate. Max, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Allie covers this better than anyone else. You got to be following her work. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, Democrats have done this in the past, Republicans. So it's not like a partisan thing, but you're right, to the extent that they're doing it. And I think to the extent which Republicans are taking advantage of some of these loopholes where you don't have to report until after the election, et cetera, like this is being concealed at a level, and this is something Allie says all the time. The money is being concealed at a level we have not seen it before.
Interestingly enough, one of these examples of pro-Israel spending, UDP, AIPAC, Super PAC, gave $650,000 to Bold America, a group that has spent millions to aid Adriano Espaillat, and that is, as you said, Max, has a big primary in a Manhattan-based district, an upper Manhattan-based district. UDP is not Bold's only donor. The group has existed and supports Hispanic candidates. So this is something I assume you're going to hear about in the closing days of this election today and tomorrow. And with that, leave us a rating and review. You can subscribe to Punchbowl News at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe.